Good evening, District 1, and welcome to our first ever virtual National Night Out here at the Galveston Police Department. I'm going to introduce you to a couple of my team. Of course, as you know, the Galveston Police Department is made up of over 200 sworn and non-sworn individuals who help keep this island safe every day and keep everything running. On my left, I have Assistant Chief Doug Battle, who's second in command for the Galveston Police Department, and he's here daily for your needs. Next to him, Captain Pete Alcacer, who is over Patrol Operations Bureau, and everything that has to do with patrol and answering calls and things in your neighborhood. And next to him, Lieutenant Destin Singh, who after a promotion, a couple of transfers, has returned to community services where you may know him from his sergeant days. And so now he is a lieutenant and building a wonderful team of guys to help handle nuisance, crime, and other issues on this island. To my right, I have the backbone of the department, the guys who do the work. First, I have Officer Winnie, who is a night shift patrol officer, works likely in your district, answering calls and things of that sort. He worked previously in Houston, and came down to run the best department in the state of Texas. Next to him, we have Officer Collins, who has recently moved to special operations. They do street crimes, power shift, and community services. You see them in community meetings and things of that sort as we move forward. Next to him, Officer Stoney Clinton, who's also part of Spec Ops and community services. And then Officer Coronado, who you may have seen downtown in his downtown officer days. And now we moved him to transfer those skills to community services. We're gonna let these folks get back to work, and we'll talk a little bit about crime and what's going on in your district. District 1. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about overall crime on the island, and then we'll talk about some issues specific to District 1, and then hopefully you'll have better information going forward. As we move forward throughout the year, we hope to get you more regular display of stats and everything specifically related to where you live. Overall, for the Galveston Island, September compared to August, our overall crime for what we consider Part 1 crime. Of course, that system changed here recently to an average system, but we're still in the major offenses. We're down about 15.5%. That means things like assaults, sexual assaults, auto thefts, burglaries, etc. When we look at this year, 2020 compared to 2019, we're down about 3.9% for the entire island. However, we have had a couple of spikes since last year, namely ag assaults, which could be any assault with injuries, gunfire, things of that sort. We've had an increase of sexual assaults and family violence. And we've had an increase in burglary of motor vehicle, which means they're breaking in cars. There's a good and a bad side to that. The good side is that more and more of the cars are now locked. Unlike last couple of years when I was here, the cars would always be unlocked and we're allowing these people to come in and take our property. So I always remind you to lock, tape, hide. Lock your cars up. If you must leave stuff in it, hide it. Or take the stuff in the house with you when you get home. And help bring those burglary motor vehicles down. It's a crime of opportunity. If they see something they want, a purse, a laptop, whatever, then they're likely to try to take it. And finally, we're up to thefts. And that just happened over the summer as we move into these pop-up events and things of that sort. District 1 is specific, which spans basically from about 25th Street to 71st Street and O and across the harbor side. The number 1, 2, and 3 crimes you're getting in your district are 1, thefts. A lot of those thefts are on private property, some of them being at convenience stores and things of that sort, but a lot in this district tend to be at private property, where they're taking things from your sheds, your garages, things of that sort. Make sure we're locking up our bicycles. Make sure you have good lighting at night. Have motion sensors. You can get a low-cost motion sensor at any big box store or hardware store for $20 or less, or you can get the cameras and things you see on TV all the time, whether it be from Blink or Ring or any of the other big carriers, or your alarm company. Public intoxication. So we get a lot of public intoxication calls down there and end up having to make arrests. So be cognizant of roadways and people out there who are having suspicious behavior. If you see folks that are out there being overserved, etc., please let us know. Criminal mischief, that comes from whether it be graffiti or breaking people's property, breaking into people's cars, not taking anything, things of that sort turn into criminal mischief. And finally, a lot of family violence. That's hard to prevent as families become frustrated with one another and begin to have altercations, but we certainly want to do everything we can to use the resources available. So don't ever forget about your resource at the crisis center, at the family violence units, and things of that sort. Contact us, and we can show you where to get help. If you're a victim of family violence, please don't hesitate to contact us so that we can get you out of those situations. Overall, we had a slight decrease in crime as it went into COVID, and then when the summer and everything started to release, call numbers, those things started going up. So for prevention, biggest tips I have for District 1. Number one, like I already said, ensure your doors are locked on your vehicles in your homes, your sheds, your garage, and all those places where people may be stealing. Do not leave valuables in plain sight anywhere, whether it be at your home or in your car. Make sure your cameras and any equipment related to that is working. Anytime you get to some location and they have cameras, but they're not in operation, or the storage is full, or other issues. So help us out. Make sure you do those things. Make sure you get them. Porch lights, lamps, driveways, all those things, lighting matters. Lock your bicycles. It's one of the primary forms of transportation. It's also, we've seen a recent spike in accidents around bicycles, and so we certainly want to make sure we have bicycle safety. But in lieu of that, also make sure you lock those bicycles up when you get from point A to point B. Have your neighbors check your property when you're out of town. That's one of the purposes of National Night Out. It means to bring neighbors together and bring police officers into communication with you. So, in the spirit of that, get to know your neighbors that you can trust, to watch out for one another. Don't post those things on social media that you're going to be out of town for 2 weeks. That's just an invitation for a burglar to come burglarize your house in those 2 weeks. So, but do let your neighbors know so that they can keep an eye on you, and you can do the same for them later. Mark your valuables. Way back when I was a young officer, we used to etch social security numbers, driver's license numbers, those things in your property. Now there's even easier ways to do that. You can get a simple UV and write your driver's license number on your piece of property. Make sure you record your serial numbers and things of that sort and log them. If your items do get stolen, it's so much easier for us to recover if we have those serial numbers or have some way to identify that this property belongs to you. And certainly at night, in the entertainment districts and everywhere else, make sure you walk with a buddy or in groups so that you can watch out for one another. As you know, downtown, a couple of weeks ago, we had an attempted abduction, and I don't want that to happen. And we'll continue to look for that person. So if you have any questions, concerns around any of these crimes, any good tips for your neighbors or us, then certainly give us a call. We're always available. And thank you for attending National Night Out, District 1.